ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नानाशास्त्रविचारेकनिपुनो सधर्मसंस्थापको लोकानां हितकारिणो त्रिभुवने मान्यो शरण्याकरो राधाकृष्णपदारविन्द्रभजना नन्देन मत्तालिकयो वन्दे रूपसनातनो रघुजुगो श्रीजीवगोपालको। Proceeding ahead with our shloka recitation, please recite together. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadhyanavrtam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktiruttama sarvapadi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktiruchyate अतः श्री कृष्ण नामादि नाभवत्क्रायमिन्द्रिये सेवन्मुखे हि जीवादो स्वयं एवास्फुरति यदः अनासक्तस्य विषयान् यथारम् उपयुञ्जतः निर्बद्धकृष्णसम्बन्धे युक्तं वैराग्यमुच्यते। So, Hare Krishna, thank you for bearing for all this technical glitch that happened in the beginning of the program. Let's begin with it. We are on the lesson 4. Going to discuss the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. So, I'll give you a presentation first. We'll speak via the presentation to help you understand the subject, and then we'll read if time permits, or else reading could be a part of homework. Okay? And Mother Medhavni, is that all okay? Everyone is able to join now? No more complaints about the new ID?
Yeah, Mataji joined using the phone, but she couldn't apparently log in through a laptop. So.
Okay. We'll fix out this Zoom ID issue by the next time. Okay, thank you. So, we have just read the first 1.5 page where the discussion of Kapil Muni talking about pure devotional service, and then it was talked about how devotees of the Lord even reject liberation, particularly definitely Sayujya Mukti, where one merges with the Lord, and what to speak about, of course, and also the other liberation. They're not interested in liberation. After making that point, which is just a continuation of the definition of pure devotional service, now Srila Rupa Goswami begins to talk about the characteristics of pure devotional service. This is the verse. There's the 17th verse of the first chapter of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Okay, they're not visible. Screen is visible now? Great. Kleshagni subhadha moksha lagutkrit sudurlabha sandrananda visheshatma Shri Krishna akarshani chasa. So, yes. The translation of this verse is, pure devotional service brings immediate relief. Kleshagni. Klesha means suffering. Agni means that burns up suffering. So the devotional service brings up relief from all kind of sufferings. Shubhada invokes auspiciousness. Moksha laghuta krit. It minimizes the position of liberation or mukti. Sudullabha, rarely attained. What is rarely attained? The position of pure devotion. Sandrananda visheshatma. It puts one onto the transcendental platform, as Prabhupada translates. Sandrananda, Sandrananda, which means a very condensed bliss, form of bliss, which has been described. We'll talk about it when we look into it. Shri Krishna akarshani chasa. And the sixth characteristic is that it even attracts Lord Shri Krishna. Now, at this level, when this characteristic manifests, even Krishna gets attracted. So, that is the subject matter. So, for today's discussion, Srila Rupa Goswami have done a very detailed analysis, primarily of Kleshagni, freedom from suffering. So, we'll spend our time on this discussion today. However, before we begin with it, let me ask all of you a question. Let me give some examples from the scriptures. Let's take a case of, no, if I give you an example, then you get the reason. Okay, let me ask you a question first, then I'll give you an example. So, why do someone suffers? What is the cause of suffering according to you? Yes, Rati Manjari Mataji, go ahead.
It's basically everyone who comes to the material universe lords it over material nature and builds one's karma. So it's the karma which is playing out when you take the next birth, and also the sins committed in the current birth.
So, karma to be blamed. Sinful karma to be blamed. What is the cause of sinful karma? So, agreed, your suffering is because of past activities. What is the cause of karma? Naveen Prabhu, go ahead.
Correct, Prabhu. So
Yes.
basically the desires.
Yes, very nice. The desires. The desire is the cause for sinful activities. Correct. What is the cause of, for example, if you have a sinful desire that results in sinful action, and when you perform a sinful action, the nature of it is such, our sinful desire becomes more stronger. So it's a cycle. It self-perpetuates. It keeps on increasing. So my next question is, what is the cause of a sinful desire?
Ignorance.
Okay, who spoke that?
Ram Hari.
Oh,
Raghavendra.
okay, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Okay,
Hare
okay.
Krishna.
Thank you. Correct. Ignorance is a cause of material desires. Material desires are a cause of sinful actions, and sinful actions are a cause of suffering. So the root cause for our suffering is what? Avidya, ignorance. What is ignorance? Those of you,
Ignorance of,
yeah, go ahead, Raghavendra Prabhu.
ignorance of who we are, what is our relationship with the Lord, and what is our duty towards our Supreme Lord.
Yes, Sambandha Gyan, which is called as what Raghavendra Prabhu just said. Who am I? Who is the Supreme Father, the Supreme Lord? And what is the relationship between I and the Supreme Lord? That is called as Sambandha Gyan. Because the lack of ignorance of that, that's the reason person begins to think himself to be the enjoyer, proprietor, and controller, and that's where the cycle of suffering begins. Srila Prabhupada was once getting into the car. He had just done a program. He had just addressed the devotees, and now he's leaving that particular temple. He came to his car. The car was waiting for him. The devotee opened the door of the car. Srila Prabhupada got inside. There was one young devotee who had been thinking since the time Srila Prabhupada came to that particular temple, which had been for the last 3 days, he had been thinking to ask Prabhupada a question. 3 days have passed, the class have ended, the question answer sessions have ended, yet he could not ask the question. He did not have the courage to approach Prabhupada and ask the question. So now he's standing in a line, giving farewell to Prabhupada, and he's thinking, should I ask this question? Should I ask this question? And finally, when Prabhupada closed the door, the car was ignited, the car was started. The driver put his feet on the accelerator and the car started to move. Suddenly this devotee realized, now I'm losing the opportunity. I don't know when Prabhupada is going to come again. So he ran and he knocked on the window of the Prabhupada. And Prabhupada rolled over the window and the car is slowly moving. And he looked at Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, how can I become the pure devotee of the Lord? Now, Who would like to give an answer if a question is asked to you by your counselee? Now, let me put a condition around, okay? I know some of you can give me a 1 hour lecture on it. So I don't want a 1 hour lecture here right now on this subject matter. How can I become a pure devotee? Define in one single line. Well, Prabhupada used one word to answer it, but for us, let's say one line. Make sure you answer only in one line, okay? Now, don't say, Prabhuji, don't say in one line, Prabhuji, I have 5 commas and this many punctuation and so forth, and you make a para out of it. Okay? Okay. Nitai Pranpu, go ahead.
Prabhu, just to have that desire.
Yes, Prabhupada said the answer was desire. It's like it's a famous pastime. Prabhupada said desire, that's all. And that is what the subject matter we're going to discuss through this Kleshagni subject. It's all a game of desire. What we need to change, what we need to transform within ourselves is our desires. And all of us who have taken this path of bhakti would have realized that what we used to desire before, what we desire today, have tremendously changed. Yes? हरी बोल बोलो भाई नहीं बोल रहे तो मेरी चिंता बढ़ रही है कुछ भी नहीं हुआ अभी तक okay, I'm sorry, I was speaking to the devotees who are sitting in front of me. Okay. So yes, that's the thing. And how many of you agree only little bit change have happened? There's a lot to occur, right? A lot of transformation, a lot of change or desire has to happen. So all right, so that's a little background to the subject. Let's go back to the presentation and let's see what we have ahead. So, Kleshagni Shubhada Moksha Laguta Krit Sudullabha Sandrananda Visheshatma Shri Krishna Akarshani Cha. So that's the thing. These are the 6 characteristics of pure devotion service. So all of you agreed and we have done a brief discussion. The cause of our suffering is, sinful action. Cause of sinful action is sinful desire. The cause of sinful desire is ignorance. So, Canto 9, Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a story of, the Canto 9 talks about the whole lineage, the different dynasties. Primarily, Canto 9 focuses on the Vamsha of Solar dynasty, or the lineage of Solar dynasty, and then later half is a Moon dynasty, like that. So there comes a story of Jamdagni, a great sage, father of incarnation, Shaktavesh avatar, Parshuramji. The father of an incarnation was brutally murdered. His head was chopped off by the sons of Kartavya Arjun. Now, he himself was a great sage. Jamdagni in the current time, in the current Manu, is one of the Saptarishis. So he went on to become and get that position. So such a great personality, father of an incarnation, how can he has to face a brutal murder? His head was chopped off. A very interesting purport comes. This is something important for all the practicing devotees. So I'm just kind of making this point. Rather than giving an example of demons, anyways they'll suffer. I'm quoting an example of a great devotee. Prabhupada writes a very profound purport in this context, where Prabhupada writes and says, this is what the Vedic scripture teaches us. Everyone has to be very careful in their dealings with others. What Jamdagni had to face was the reaction of his action. What was his action because of which he got such a brutal reaction? He had asked his sons to kill his wife. I believe Renuka, if I'm correct, was a wife of Jamdagni. Now that's the story of it, why that whole thing happened. I'm not going to go into the details of it. There was a minor offense, but Jamdagni he felt that she has betrayed me, which was not the case. But it was a minor offense because of which he became so upset. He told his sons to kill your mother. I disown her. And when the sons did not agree, and finally the youngest of all, Parshuram, came, he told Parshuram, kill the mother and kill the sons also. Kill the whole family. So, okay, don't get too much worried about it. So the point I'm sharing is, Prabhupada writes in the purport, he was such a great personality, had to face a reaction for such an action. Now, when you talk about Kauravas, the whole Kauravas race was annihilated. What was the cause of it? Dhritarashtra had to suffer, seeing the loss of his 100 sons. What was the cause of the suffering? Yeah, the disrobing of Draupadi, correct? So if we talk about any of these sinful personalities, for example, let's say Ravana, the whole dynasty was destroyed, which culminated with the death of Ravana, right? Only Vibhishan survived. What was the cause of it? Because he tried kidnapping. He kidnapped Mother Sita. So when you talk about sinful persons getting a reaction, that is okay. But the point is, Prabhupada, the Vedic scripture teaches us to be very careful in our dealings with others, because reaction comes like that. So that's a cause, that's an example which has been some of the example that comes in the subject matter. So we have already performed all kinds of sinful actions in the past, previous lifetimes. We are already carrying with certain desires. The question is, how do we get rid of it? Now, when we talk about sinful actions, the Vedic scriptures recommends Vedic rituals. You can perform yajna, tapa, austerity, dan, etc. And you can get, it's a remedy for your sinful reactions. You can get freed from sinful reactions. But the question which Parikshit Maharaj reaches in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, well, it is like an elephant bath. You are supposed to get some suffering, or you are undergoing certain suffering, but you take this Vedic remedy and you do some, pious activity, and your reaction gets subsided. But the sinful desire still continues, isn't it? Just like an elephant goes and takes bath into the river, comes back and again lifts his trunk, pushes mud into it and throws all over the body. But the sinful desire, because sinful desire is present, the person commits sin again. So the question arises, okay, sinful reaction I can get rid, I can minimize my suffering by minimizing my the result of my sinful actions by performing some pious activities. But what about the desire? And that's the whole 6th canto all about. And that's the question that Parikshit Maharaj asked with Sukadeva Goswami. He said, Sukadeva Goswami, this is not the best atonement, because the sinful desire cannot get purified. And then Sukadeva Goswami said that only way to purify desire, please note the word only, there's no other remedy. The only way to purify the sinful desire is to engage in devotional service and nothing else. So that's how we find a remedy for sinful desire. But the root of the sinful desire is avidya. So how do we fix avidya? That is the whole discussion of Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? Arjuna has gone and has fallen into avidya, ignorance of the self. And what is Krishna is doing? He's giving him transcendental knowledge, right? So avidya is uprooted, avidya is destroyed by cultivating transcendental knowledge. Is that making sense? So Bhagavad Gita is an example where Arjuna has fallen into ignorance, and Lord Shri Krishna picks him out of the ignorance by giving him transcendental knowledge. Like that. So by transcendental knowledge, cultivating, we are reading the scriptures. Why Prabhupada established Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, Bhakti Vedanta, Bhakti Sarvabhauma? Why Prabhupada was keen for having this kind of systematic study? Because unless our intelligence becomes spiritualized, unless our intelligence is purified, intelligence is actually the master for the mind and the senses. Of course, greater than the intelligence of soul. But intelligence is a decision maker. If intelligence is not purified, if it's not purified by the spiritual instructions, then a person becomes easy victim to his material desires. How many of you have faced a challenge that there is a particular desire which is against spiritual practice, but by a power of discrimination, because you have heard your spiritual master, you have heard a devotee, you have read in scriptures, by that you have developed a certain discrimination and you are able to say no to it. How many have that experience? We have had that experience. How it has happened? Through the intelligence. Intelligence which has now cultivated the ability to discriminate. And that ability to discriminate comes from spiritual instructions. So this is the gist of the discussion that we're going to see. Avidya gets uprooted through cultivating transcendental knowledge, and that's why we have all these programs. Desires gets purified by engaging in devotional service. 6th canto was the reference that I gave you. Sinful karma, the sinful reaction, those gets purified by Vedic rituals, and of course devotional service definitely do that. And that's how the person mitigates suffering. So one who takes to bhakti, we are talking about how the very first characteristic of bhakti is kleshagni. So one who takes to bhakti, everything happens parallelly for all the four. Your avidya is uprooted, your sinful desires are transformed into service to Krishna. If there is no sinful desire, there is a full stop to sinful activities, right? When there's no more sinful actions, then there's no more suffering. Is that making sense? So bhakti is the only yoga process which in itself puts a complete halt to this whole cycle of suffering, but no other process. And that is how Srila Rupa Goswami explains that. Let's take a look. This is a brief of the subject matter. We'll walk through with the presentation now. So, kleshagni, relief from distress. Klesha is material suffering, agni is destroys. So, pure devotionalism brings immediate relief from all kinds of material desires. Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 2nd chapter, verse number 50. Na kama karma bhijanam yasya chetasi sambhava vasudeveka nilayaha savai bhagavato uttamaha. Would anyone like to read the translation, please?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, I can read.
Please go ahead.
One who has taken exclusive shelter of the Supreme Lord, Vasudev, becomes free from fruitive activities which are based on material lust. In fact, one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord is free from even the desire to enjoy material sense gratification. Plans for enjoying sex life, social prestige, and money cannot develop within his mind. Thus, he is considered Bhagavatuttama, a pure devotee of the Lord on the highest platform.
When you talk about, this very interesting thing, it's a very important purport. All of you can mark it as a homework because we already started late, so I'll not go into the purport right now. But you pay attention to this. Plans, which means desire, isn't it? So let's translate plans into desire. Desire for enjoying sex life, social prestige, which means reputation, money cannot develop within his mind. This is Narad Muni speaking to Vasudev. The purity of his mind is such a thought only does not come. For whom he is talking about? A pure devotee of the Lord on the highest platform. So it is said, Na kama karma bijanam yasya chetasi sambhava. One who has taken shelter of Vasudev. Just like the first canto Srimad Bhagavatam says, Vasudev Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Jnanam Cha. What is that? Vasudev Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Jnanam Cha Yat Ahitukam Vairagya. I'm sorry, I'm missing the last two lines. So it says, those who engage in the devotional service of Vasudev, two things happens. Jnanam, transcendental knowledge, and renunciation develops automatically. And that's what similar verse over here is talking about the consequence of it. So, moving forward, Srila Prabhupada writes, simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna once, a person is relieved from all the reactions of a sinful life. Any example? Who just chanted once and he got freed from everything and went back to Godhead?
Ajamila, Hare Krishna.
Ajamila? No.
Said Narayana.
Okay, yes, he did said that Narayana, but Bhagavatam only talks about there. There is a follow-up story after that, which is not mentioned in Bhagavatam because that was not the subject matter, but it does talk about that there's a one verse comes which says, after this, Ajamila went to Haridwar. And then he performed his devotional life, and then when he perfected, he went back to Godhead. So there, by chanting Narayan, he was saved. But the point I'm asking here is, simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna, the person is relieved. Of course, Ajamil happened also. He also got purified in that way. Correct.
Haridas Thakur.
Who?
Haridas Thakur.
What did Haridas Thakur did because of which he got purified? He was a Brahma in his past life. I was actually thinking of Khatwanga Maharaj. The story comes in the 9th canto, and Prabhupada writes about him in the 2nd chapter, 72nd verse purport of Bhagavad Gita. How Khatwanga Maharaj, on the request of Devatas, who was unconquerable, he defended Devatas, and after defending and protecting Devatas, then Khatwanga Maharaj asked the Devatas. Devatas wanted to bless material opulence. Khatwanga Maharaj asked, how much time do I have? Devata said, 1 moment. And immediately Khatwanga Maharaj left. And it said he just chanted the holy names of the Lord and went back to Godhead. So I was just thinking of that example. But yeah, Ajamil example is also correct. When a person circumambulates Srimati Tulsi Devi, all the sins he may have committed are destroyed at every step, even the sin of killing a Brahmana. How many of you believe this? Just by circumambulated, all my sins are purified. Just by chanting the holy names of the Lord, all the reactions of sinful, past sinful acts are nullified. Yes, no, what your thought about it?
Essentially, it happens gradually. It's not all of a sudden.
But Prabhupada doesn't say anywhere gradually. Where do you read? You want me to show you the slide again? Please read out Brother Rati Manjari. What is the second point mentioned about Tulsi
Hare
Maharani?
Krishna. When a person circumambulates Srimati Tulsi Devi, all the sins he may have committed are destroyed at every step, even the sin of killing a Brahmana. Shri Tulsi Pradakshina Mantra.
So, what's going on? It said it happens. Well, we'll come back to it when we talk about why devotees face challenges. So, okay, let's continue with Kleshagni. That's how it is mentioned, Prabhupada writes. That's how we become free. This is Madhya, 17th chapter, 95th purport. Anyone would like to read it? Please read out. Yes, Mother Varsha, go ahead.
There are 3 kinds of devotees: those who are eternally on the transcendental platform, Nitya Siddha; those who have been elevated to the transcendental platform by the execution of devotional service, Sadhana Siddha; and those who are neophytes advancing towards the perfectional platform, Sadhaka. The Sadhakas are gradually becoming free from fruitive reaction. Madhya 17.95 purport.
Yes, 3 kinds of devotees: Nitya Siddha, Sadhana Siddha, and Sadhaka. And the sadhakas are gradually becoming free from fruitive reactions. So as Mother Rati Manjari was saying, gradually it happens. This is one of the reference where it is talked about it. It happens gradually. Why it happens gradually? We'll discuss in a short while. Where it is said simultaneously that once you circumambulate Tulsi Maharani, you are purified. But simultaneously it is said gradually. So what exactly is happening? And what is the reason for it? We'll take a look in a short while. So, 3 kleshas. Let's talk on the subject matter of suffering, and then we'll take the subject matter of why devotees still face certain challenges in a short while. So there are 3 sufferings, causes of suffering explained by Rupa Goswami. Kleshastu papam tat beejam avidya cheti te tridat. There are 3 kinds. Avidya leads to beejam, beejam leads to papam, and papam leads to suffering. So let's start our journey with talking about avidya. We've already discussed, some of you already answered correctly. Avidya is not knowing who am I, what's my relationship with the Lord. So how to destroy this ignorance? Yeah, that's the verse. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ahitukam. So by rendering devotion service, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. In Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Shri Krishna speaks something about like this. When one who engages in my devotional service gets transcendental knowledge. Anyone remembers? Of course, we have not discussed Bhagavad Gita right now, but anyone knows any such reference from Bhagavad Gita? Okay, chapter number? You can think of which chapter potentially would have that. Okay, all right.
Transcendental knowledge.
Sorry?
Transcendental knowledge chapter. We have Tesham.
Transcendental knowledge is chapter 4. I was thinking, of course, there could be multiple verses. I was thinking of chapter 10. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti. Correct? Krishna says, when who engages in devotional service, I give him. Just like Krishna says, our Sukadeva Goswami is saying here, when who engages in devotional service to the Lord, then he is awarded with. It's an interesting subject matter, huh? You are awarded with. You don't grab it. You cannot grab transcendental knowledge. You are awarded with, you are given with. The time permit, we'll take a look at it also. So how do we destroy? By taking to devotional service. Very interesting analogy Rupa Goswami mentions, which Srila Prabhupada translates as follows. There are many snakes on the ground of the forest, and when a fire takes place, it burns the dried foliage and the snakes are immediately attacked. Similarly, the blazing fire of Krishna consciousness is so strong that the snakes of ignorance are immediately killed. Is it? Oh, sorry, the slide was not visible. Is that okay? That's a slide. So this is Prabhupada writes, this is an analogy given by Srila Rupa Goswami. Example is, when there is a forest fire, not only the dry leaves are burnt, even the snakes of ignorance are burnt. So when the fire of Krishna consciousness, the blazing fire of Krishna consciousness is so strong that the snakes of ignorance are immediately killed. Now the question is about the quality of our fire of Krishna consciousness. If it is blazing, or it is about to get extinguished, or it is just lighted up. Depending on the strength of the fire of our Krishna consciousness, to that degree, our avidya is destroyed. All right? So it is for all of us to figure it out, what is the nature of our fire of Krishna consciousness to that degree. And Prabhupada uses a very interesting word, blazing. Now, if I put it in Hindi, which means Bhakti hui aag, right? Something like that you say. What should I say in English? Fierce fire, burning everything out. So only equivalent thing to make it relevant and practical that I can think of is Ussaha, Nishayat, Dhairyat. If you ask me what is the definition of blazing fire in Krishna consciousness, I'll quote the third verse of Updeshamrita. Ussaha, Nishya, Dhairya. Enthusiasm. Bhakti Tirth Maharaj, His Holiness Bhakti Tirth Maharaj, when he used to lead Mangal Aarti. Now, when our, let's say, congregation does Mangal Aarti, it generally happens for 15-20 minutes. In temple, 15 minutes. In temple, 25 minutes. When Bhakti Tirth Maharaj used to do Mangal Aarti, he used to start at 4:30. It used to go to Guru Puja. And then after the Guru Puja will start. Now, how and why he was able to do? Because he will finish all his rounds before Mangal Aarti only. He didn't know to chant. He'll chant all his rounds before Mangal Aarti, come for Mangal Aarti from 4:30. And when you come to Yasya Prasadat Bhagavad Prasado, Yasya Prasadan Nagati Kutopi, when you come to this last paragraph, your dancing kirtan begins from then. And your dancing kirtan will go for 1.5 hours. And devotees are dancing all over. So this is, I'm just giving one example of blazing fire of Krishna consciousness. We should have examples to compare with to find out what is the level of my fire. So that's the reason I just gave this example. Okay, let's move forward. So that's about avidya. How to destroy avidya is cultivating transcendental knowledge. So let me ask this question to all of you so all of you are clear. How can you cultivate transcendental knowledge? This is my question to all of you. So Prabhuji will read 1 hour Bhagavad Gita, then half an hour Bhagavatam, then half an hour NOD. If I follow the 2-hour program every day, in the next 5 years, I will be Bhakti Sarvabhauma. I will be the next Acharya. I would have read all Prabhupada books. It's a good calculation actually. So let's hear from some of you. Anyone?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhu, whoever is speaking today, please say out your name because here I'm not able to. Huh? Us.
Santosh.
Where are you on the screen? Okay, go ahead. I don't see you yet. Please go ahead.
Tadviti pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya is we need to surrender to spiritual master and then we can get the transcendental knowledge by their mercy and by serving the spirit.
No, there is an important a word here. Okay, let me ask you. Tadviti pranipatena, the definition of Prabhu gave. He spoke about surrender to Guru. First he said Guru, accept Guru. Second he said surrender to Guru. Third was mercy. If I ask you among these three, what is the most important thing through which you get transcendental knowledge? Accepting Guru, surrender to Guru, or third, mercy? By which you get?
Accepting the Guru.
No,
Accepting the Guru.
mercy. Mercy is the thing. And the path of bhakti is of kripa. So what and how we should be trying to function in our life is to see how much mercy I can attract. The service that we render, the attitude behind it. How do we practically cultivate Trinadapi Sunichena mood? We speak a lot about it, isn't it? If all of you are in the habit of reciting Shastri every day, how do you practically actually apply in life? It is only possible when you have developed this consciousness of dependence on devotees and the Lord. When we have given up the independence, thinking that I can do bhakti on my own and I can grow on my own. When you have understood the concept that I am dependent, not independent, I'm dependent on the devotees, I'm dependent on the mercy of Guru and Gauranga, this dependency forces us, reminds us, be humble, be tolerant, be in the mood of dasanudas. Is that making sense? Imagine if that mood itself is not there, if this consciousness is itself not there, if I think, any one of us, I'm giving an example, I can progress in bhakti on my own. If I can progress on bhakti on my own, how do you then apply Trinadapi Sunichena? Is that a possibility? I can progress on bhakti on my own, just like you study in college and school. I will study books, I will get the highest marks, and I'll become progressive. Bhakti is not like that. Bhakti is dependent. That's the point. So that's how we get it. So thank you. Let's move forward. That's how we cultivate knowledge. Second is Beejam, material desires. Due to misidentification with the body, considering body to be mine, then material desires develops. And Prabhupada, Srila Rupa Goswami gives an example, and Prabhupada explains about Ajamil's story. All of you know that he was very well learned in scriptures. He was a son of a qualified Brahmana. He was himself a qualified Brahmana. But when he saw a prostitute and a low-class man mingling out in the public, this material desire manifested within him. And because of which he fell away from his spiritual position and he became victim to lust, anger and whatnot, and all life was destroyed. And his life after that was only but suffering. So, how do we neutralize material desire? We discussed that briefly in the beginning. To neutralize sinful actions, there are certain rituals that can be done, Vedic rituals, sacrifices. But when it comes to material desires, this is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 2nd chapter, verse number 17. This is what I spoke before. Sinful desires can only be neutralized by bhakti, whereas sinful reactions can temporarily be neutralized by any kind of Vedic sacrifice, dan, tapa, etc. That is what is mentioned here. This is another reference from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 22nd chapter, verse number 39, Prabhupada writes. Somebody please read out. Please, yeah, you may self-volunteer and go ahead, huh? You have to ask me. Go ahead.
Can I read through?
Yes, please, please.
The Bhaktas, by their transcendental devotional service, so the side went over.
Oh. Please go ahead.
The Bhaktas, by their transcendental devotional service unto the lotus feet of the Lord, become so overwhelmed with transcendental bliss that automatically their desire for material enjoyment stops. Desires of fruitive activity are strongly rooted, but the stream of desire can be uprooted completely by devotional service because devotional service employs superior desire.
Param drishtva nivartate, as we say, right? 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. By cultivating higher desires, it is possible to give up lower desires. So material desires can be uprooted, can be neutralized by devotional service. That's the point here. Then comes the third stage. When you have a sinful desire, definitely there's going to be a sinful action. So papam. Now, very interesting discussion on the subject matter of papam, which is done by Srila Rupa Goswami. When a person performs sinful action, Rupa Goswami says two kinds of sinful reactions are produced. This is the 19th verse, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Aprarabdham bhavet papam, prarabdham cheti tat dvidha. Two kinds, dvidha. One is called as prarabdh, other is called as aprarabdh. Prarabdh, I guess somebody needs to be muted. Prarabdh means which is manifesting right now. Aprarabdh, which means in future life. So the simple example of prarabdh, which we are undergoing right now, the suffering which we are undergoing right now, is the material body that we have. The material body that we have got is itself is a result of prarabdh. So, traditionally, when a child is born, parents will show his chart, or the chart will be prepared. Astrologer will prepare a chart and would tell about all his life. I will tell him when this child would be 5 months old, he will get this and this suffering. When he'll be 3.5 years old, there are chances that he may get pneumonia or typhoid. He'll be hospitalized for 1 month, something like that. And 8 months, he would almost have a near-death experience. And after that, his dasha, which means the constellation of planetary movements, will be okay. And for the next 15 years, he'll have a golden period of his life. He'll have a wonderful progress. And then by the age of 30, he'll get married, he'll have 2 or 3 sons. And then at the age of 40, looking at his horoscope and astrology, it looks like he might get a heart attack. But there are chances he might survive. And then if he survives, he'll continue to live up to the age of 65. Finally, the movie ends. How many of you have heard the astrological chart? Now, have you wondered? It is interesting, huh? Right at the time the child is born, all the suffering, he comes packed with the suffering. Only the time unpacks it, isn't it? So this is called as prarabdh. So when you're born with, you've already come with it, and with a certain duration, you'll get the good and the bad prarabdh, the good results and the bad results. So sinful actions, activities are two kinds: those that are mature which are and those which are not mature. Mature is prarabdha, which are not mature is aprarabdha. The sinful activities for which we are suffering, that is called as mature. We have discussed that. All right. So there are two kinds of sinful reaction: aprarabdha and prarabdha. So please note the terminologies: immature, mature, unmanifest, manifest. This is often used, so you should not get confused. Okay. So aprarabdha is called as immature, unmanifested, like that. Now, so prarabdham ka example we gave, and you understood the body is a result of prarabdham, and we are undergoing suffering, and that is already comes with when a child is born. So my question here is, can unmanifest reaction, which means aprarabdham, which is for future life, can unmanifest reaction cause suffering? Yes, even aprarabdham causes suffering. Now, it's a very important point, because when I said when a child comes, he already comes with the prarabdha karma. Everything is all set for his life, how much happiness, how much suffering he'll get. So then somebody may say, oh really? Then I can do as much as sinful reactions I want, as sinful activities I want. Anyways, I'm not going to suffer in this life, right? Because it's going to become aprarabdha and it will be for next life. No, we suffer. There are two kinds of reactions we get for even aprarabdham. What is that? First is a direct physical or emotional suffering. That is called as prarabdham itself, which means that aprarabdha becomes prarabdham. It depends on time, when and how it happens. So it may happen immediately or after a while. Physical or emotional suffering. Second is called as indirect suffering, by which means when we engage in a sinful action, it increases our proclivity to commit a sin. Hari bol, this is the time you need to be awake. How the sin functions is the time you need to know. All right. So, indirect suffering by increasing our proclivity to commit sin. Take an example. When somebody engages into an illicit act, that illicit act with a sinful activity can result into physical suffering in the form of AIDS, right? Diseases like that. It can lead into emotional suffering where the person, the spouse may find out about extramarital affair, things like that. There could be a relationship crisis, which means emotional suffering. Second, which is subtle and of which we need to be very careful, which we don't realize, is, okay, somebody may say, okay, I'm not caught. I'm not having any physical emotional suffering. I've just done it once, so I'll just do it once. But we don't understand that once a person engages in a sinful act, the desire to do it becomes +1 stronger. So there was a personality around the time or a little bit later than Srila Prabhupada, who has his headquarters in Pune. Okay? No names. Don't ask me the name. So this person said, क्या है? हाँ, संभोग से समाधि. Those of you understand the Hindi. Sambhog se samadhi means, what should we translate in English? Something, you fulfill all your material desires or lust and you become spiritually realized, something like that. So, Sambhog se samadhi is what he said. So, point I'm trying to make is, no, that's not correct. That can never happen. Because once a person engages into fulfilling the material desire, as I write, read the last line, the more we try to satisfy desires, the stronger it becomes. And that is an indirect suffering that we get. So not that only person just does it once, then he wants to do it again and again. Let me give you another example. Imagine somebody did a stealing in his previous life. All right? Now somebody did a stealing in his previous life. Now, when death happens, The mind is like a vehicle that carries the soul to the next destination, which means next body. Now, whenever that living entity takes human birth again, because he had done a stealing in the past life, see, we may call past life, but for the laws of nature, is a single span. It's a single scale on which we are going up and down. So we have done an activity of stealing. A person is born, a child is born in this life, another life, human form. Because he had done an act of stealing, therefore he would have the desire to steal again. Now, let me ask this question to all of you. How many of you have wondered, how can I have this kind of a sinful desire? I never did like this. Now, it's a very difficult to happen today because our exposure to sinful things is so much that by watching movies only we get cultivated so many sinful desires, isn't it? Otherwise, in previous times, like you read the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. For example, let's take a case of Yudhishthira Maharaj. When Mother Kunti, without looking at the charity, she said, Yudhishthira, distribute the charity. I'm talking about Draupadi. And then everyone was confused. Then Arjuna asked Yudhishthira, Yudhishthira Maharaj, please tell me, what do you think? And Yudhishthira Maharaj said, when Mother Kunti said, divide the charity equally among all of you, which means that all of you should become the husband of Draupadi. My mind, please pay attention, my mind not even once revolted against this idea. What it means? Yudhishthira is saying, my mind have accepted this proposal. It means this is the will of providence. Now, let me go further to help you understand. If there was a sinful act in it, my mind would not have accepted it. That was a stature of the purity of Yudhishthira's mind. Now, if there are contaminations in our mind, all the plans for sense gratification happens in the mind. Now, somebody who is not exposed to the modern world, there a person can, can introspect and realize what all, I must have done in my previous life because of which I'm having these desires. But today, because the young kids are exposed to so much internet, so much TV, but just by looking at it, so many sinful desires are developed. And imagine if Yudhishthira Maharaj was not of that stature, what Arjuna would have said. I have a doubt on your intention only. Isn't it? Hey Yudhishthira, you are taking advantage of younger brother. I got married, but you have your eyes on my wife. That's the reason. Imagine if this incident have to happen in Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, the brother says, my dear brother, mother have said has to be correct because my mind has not revolted against the sinful desire. So that is a point here which I was trying to make on the subject matter of how when a person engages in sinful activity, of course you may not get immediate physical emotional suffering, but it gives you an indirect suffering in the form of a more stronger desire to engage into that sinful activity. And that is how person continues to suffer. Is that making sense? So the more we try to satisfy desire, the stronger it becomes. So how do we deal with it? Now at our stage, we are trying to do bhakti, right? But yet we are not totally pure. We still get agitated by desires. So what do? It is said you'll get purified. So okay, until I get purified, I have a concession. Until I get purified, I have a concession. Is that the meaning? No, that's not the meaning. Lord Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita what we should do. And it is mentioned, we should not try to satisfy sinful desires. And this is a verse from 2nd chapter, verse number 17. Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudramapa pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sa shantimapnoti nakama kami. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. What we need to do is tolerate. We need to tolerate such upsurges within us, such uprising of desires within us. And if we cultivate that ability of tolerance, which is being discussed, these desires enter like incessant flow of river into the ocean. Just like ocean doesn't get disturbed, similarly we have to cultivate this ability of tolerance to not get disturbed, because engaging into it, getting compelled by the sinful desire and engaging into an action further strengthens that desire. We cannot defeat it. Fulfilling the desire is a self-defeating way of becoming a victim again and again to those desires. Many times I've heard where people say, or people come across this proposition from their mind, just last time, the mind will tell you, just this only time, just do it. Nothing after that. This is for the final time. This is your final attempt to enjoy material rasa. After that, only spiritual rasa. I'll give you full permission. How many have had that experience? This is the only time I'm gonna eat Pizza Hut pizza. After that, only Krishna Prasadam. One final attempt to my that favorite pizza, or maybe the McDonald's burger, or whatever. Have you had that experience? Now, I will not ask what did you do ahead. That will not discuss. But this is how the mind tricks us. So a very beautiful analysis Srila Rupa Goswami have done on the subject matter of papam. So ahead, Srila Rupa Goswami talks, aprarabd phalam papam kutam beejam phalan mukham kramaneva praliyeta vishnu bhakti ratatmanam. So how does this unmanifest sin, the evolution of unmanifest sin is being described by Srila Rupa Goswami? Very interesting. There are 4 kinds of effects due to sinful activities. 4 things happen. What are those? Let's take a look. When a person performs a sinful action, papam, a unmanifest reaction is created called as aprarabd. Unmanifest reaction becomes manifest, which is called as prarabdha. And this aprarabdha, we said there are 2 kinds of suffering from aprarabdha, right? One is prarabdha and second is desire to do it again. That is called as kutam. So then this kutam is a desire to engage in sinful act. And then this, now what is, okay, let me just go through the cycle. And then kutam matures into beejam. What is the difference between kutam and beejam? Kutam is a psychological disposition where I like to do it, I want to do it. Beejam refers to a specific action. An example is given of a stealing. I want to steal is kutam. I want to steal iPhone. When it becomes very specific, pinpointed, it becomes beejam. And beejam is just a stage before papam. When a stage comes to beejam, sinful desire have narrowed down, this is what I want to do it. And then what follows is papam. This is what is called as evolution of sin. So here is my question to all of you. How can you break this cycle of sin? Any answers? How can you break this cycle of sin? Of course, bhakti is the answer, but there are certain things at our stage we need to deal with it. So Mother Sneha is saying purifying our desires, fine. Again, my question, you have a slide in front of you. How can you break this cycle?
By Krishna Prabhuji,
Yes.
by controlling the mind and intelligence.
Control. No, first of all, we have to give up this control word. We cannot control anything.
Directing, Prabhuji, directing the mind and intelligence into spiritual.
But when it is already dhyayatu vishyan pumsa sangaste supajayate sangas sanjayate kamat krodho vijayate. At that stage, directing is very difficult. But you are correct. You're correct. I agree with that. What else? Ramesh, who is saying chanting Hare Krishna, all the best. It doesn't work like that. Frankly speaking, okay? Not that easy. Mother Manisha, go ahead. Not audible? Yeah, audible now.
Recently discussed currently that by not fulfilling to satisfy the sinful desires.
Yes. Tolerating. Thank you. That's what we were looking at it. Sometimes things are so simple, we simply miss it. You don't have to do some complex things. What we need to do is tolerate. So you have to tell yourself, I'm just going to deal with it. Now, when you say deal with it, then follow what Mother Rati Manjari said, what other devotee said. What we're going to do? I'm going to chant Hare Krishna. I'm going to direct my mind. I knew a devotee who would get into a trouble like this. He'll go to the temple hall, and this is back in America. When I was in Columbus. I saw him a few times doing this. Any time of the day, if he has got really disturbed, because being in America, not getting disturbed is something disturbing about you. This is something uncommon about you. You being in the West and not getting disturbed, and being a bachelor, that too. And and that too, you are you're a new devotee, not a seasoned practitioner, not a mature practitioner. So I knew this devotee, when he will get really disturbed, and he really want to, no, not to get into follow with the flow of what mind wants. A very interesting thing he had. He will go in the temple hall, small temple hall. He'll play a kirtan, and he would do a wild dance in front of Prabhupada. He will dance. So when I saw him for the first time, I was thinking, oh, very advanced devotee. So, ecstasy is coming out. So I did say I was a young devotee, so I kept quiet. All right. Then after a few weeks, again I saw him. I said, super advanced devotee, huh? He's dancing all alone. And when I saw him third time, then I thought, let me ask this super advanced devotee, so I also become advanced, Should I also start doing it from tomorrow onwards? Should I also dance like this? So I asked him. Very wonderful devotee he was. He is. He's still a wonderful devotee. And he said, no, Prabhu. And he tell me what had happened with him. He's a doctor. He got into some challenges with his profession and with, dealing in the opposite gender. He said, I got really disturbed. My mind was tricking me. So I came here, and when I get into trouble like this, when my mind wants to cheat me, I come here, play a kirtan, Prabhupada kirtan, and dance in front of Prabhupada. So that all that energy which has been created, that get dissipated like that. So that's another way of redirecting, isn't it? Just like Mother Rati Manjari was saying, redirect. So it all begins with, first of all, letting yourself, telling yourself, I'm just not gonna do it. So tolerance. I'll just give a clue here, but we'll discuss at length in Bhagavad Gita. And the clue here, which I would just want you to brainstorm on it when you get time, is fantastic, is phenomenal. If you look at it in Bhagavad Gita, the very first thing Krishna tells Arjuna, you know what? What is the very first thing Krishna tells Arjuna? Mata spasha sukhanteya shitoshana sukadukada agama payano nityas tam stitikshva bharata. If you study carefully, the very first instruction is tolerate. It's a very, very important, and therefore one of the quality of a Brahmana is forbearance. Samo, Dama, Tapa, Sauchyam. Bhagavad Gita, the 18th chapter talks about it. You might find me repetitive or rhetoric here, but I'm trying to emphasize the word tolerance, because that gives us the strength to deal with it at our stage right now. All right? That's the reason. So slide is visible. Right, slide is visible. That's it about it. So how to get over this whole cycle of sin? We'll do a discussion after a break. I saw it's 2:30 now. We'll take a 7-minute break and we'll resume session after that. So we'll quote something from 3rd canto Srimad Bhagavatam. After this, we'll have discussion on that, and then will come, I would say, one of the very important discussion of this session. This is not part of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but because the subject is such, so we're going to take a discussion on it. If it is said, you take shelter of a bona fide guru, If it is said, you chant the holy names of the Lord, you do pradikshina of Tusiman, you get purified of all sinful reaction. It is said when you take diksha, all your karmic reactions are taken by the Guru. Then why do devotees still suffer? And what does that suffering can teach us? What Krishna wants from us? So that would be when we meet after a break, because we're kind of finishing up Kleshagni here. That's where we're going to take a discussion on to do why devotee has to still do that or face it. That will be a discussion. So hope to see you after a 7-minute break. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So my question again, if anyone would like to share any point from what we have just discussed so far. Mother Priya, go ahead. Yes, Mother Priya.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Tanvat Pranam. So yeah, we were discussing about the sins, and there are two kind of results which we get, prarabdha and aprarabdha. And then you also mentioned in detail in terms of how it goes further, in terms of there were two types of aprarabdha as well. And then we discussed about how can we come out of this cycle of this sinful reaction by, as Mataji also said, one second, Prabhu, by controlling our desire. If we get any material desire or anything, we try to control and tolerate so that we don't tend to go on that path further and stop getting into the cycle of that. And from Bhagavad Gita also you shared a very beautiful verse on where the rivers are getting merged into the ocean, that analogy that we need to stop ourselves and be calm in such circumstances.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
The blazing fire of devotion can remove the kleshas that we have, and it's by Utsaha, Dhairya, and Nishchaya.
Okay.
And also by the mercy of
Mercy.
and the Lord.
Mercy is a key. Great. Utsaha, Nishya, Dhairya, that exhibits the fire. It's the strength of the fire of Krishna consciousness. Anything else? Please.
Suffering.
Yeah, can you say your name, Prabhu? I can't see you on the screen.
Prabhu Mukundan.
Where are you, Mukundan Prabhu? Okay, fine. Go ahead. Yeah, I can hear you, Mukundan Prabhu, but can't see you. But go ahead.
Okay. So we also discussed why we suffer. So suffering is caused basically because of sinful actions, and the cause of sinful actions is material desires, and material desires are caused due to ignorance. And we also discussed how to eliminate ignorance, sinful desires, or material desires, and sinful actions. It is all possible through bhakti, like by gaining knowledge through a bona fide spiritual master, through his mercy, we can eliminate ignorance, and material desires can be eliminated by devotional service, and the sinful actions can also be eliminated. Of course, by doing Vedic rituals, but also through devotional service.
Thank you. Sandeep, go ahead.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Just want to, you pointed out that to break the cycle of sin, the key point is tolerance. So just want to understand how to develop this tolerance, and what is the procedure? Is it going to come up in the later sessions of this course?
No, this is not a part of this. It's a part of the Sunday evening program, Mind Management. They will discuss about this subject explicitly. But to answer your question here, cultivating tolerance. Yeah, that's a good question actually. So one is, it's a Brahminical trait. Shamo Damas Tapaha Saksham. So it's defined as a Brahminical trait. When you talk about Brahminical trait means mode of goodness. So when we raise our consciousness into mode of goodness, that's where these qualities manifest. Because when you talk about anything in this world, any aspect, everything is interrelated to modes. So what we need to change is our modes of consciousness. So mode of goodness is defined particularly, mode of passion is defined in a certain way, mode of ignorance is defined in a certain way. So when a person cultivates mode of goodness, if you look at it, what's our whole lifestyle? The whole lifestyle that Srila Prabhupada has given to us is centered around cultivating mode of goodness. Let me give you some Ayurvedic perspective of Brahma Muhurta. Now, this 4 to 6 time slot, it really doesn't matter you are a brahmachari or grahastha. If you are a spiritualist, I would say it is inevitable. It is compulsory, literally, for a person to utilize. This is the 2 hours where what we do is, you can say, is equivalent to 22 hours. That's where our energy, the maximum energy, is available for us to utilize in the right direction. Now, unfortunately, what we do based on the culture, I'm not indicating any one of us, I'm saying in general public does, is just sleep during that time. And the modern generation goes to sleep at that point of time only. Like an ullu, like a bat, they stay awake whole night. I was one of those bats in my college days also. So that's the background. I mean, of course, I didn't do anything like that. I used to study late night. That was the thing. So, so 4 to 6 we were talking about. So it's very important. Waking up at that amount of time, chanting the holy names of the Lord. So if you look at it from 4 to 9, 5 hours straight devotional program. Is there any spiritual organization, or let's say, is there any spiritual master or spiritual leader outside of ISKCON who has the courage to tell you to practice, wake up early and 4 to 9 in the morning you have to spend in spiritual life? Nobody would have courage to talk about it. Prabhupada did not only establish in temple, Prabhupada said, even to congregation, Burijan Prabhu said, right? You're not my disciple if you're not following my program. And what is my program? Get up in the morning, chant the holy names of the Lord. Of course, there are conditions and caveats available depending on your situation. So, you don't need to be fanatic about it, but it's important. So, simple dress, simple hairstyle, no hairstyle, actually, keeps you cool and steady. You don't have to look in front of the mirror for long. You don't need a mirror only. There's no need of mirror only. How much anxiety is saved, which anxiety increases tamoguna. So Prabhupada has given us a mode of goodness lifestyle. To the degree we are able to tune ourselves to that frequency, to that degree these qualities, which are the attributes of the modes, would get manifested. And of course, there are spiritual qualities which are also gets manifested when we begin to transcend. Okay? So this is an answer for a devotee. For a layman, there will be a different way of addressing how to cultivate tolerance that is based on knowledge and all that. But for us, we have the highest knowledge, modes of material nature, who is Krishna and all that, so we need to cultivate that. Mother Swapna, please go ahead. You know what? Looks like I'm seeing you for the first time.
No.
Okay.
I'm there.
Yes, that was.
Yeah, it's just a question. As you said, 4 to 6, it's a Brahma Muhurta. Is it just 2 hours before the sunrise? Because in UK, the sunrise starts at 7:50 or after 7:30. Sometimes this fluctuates. So I just want to.
Okay. Prabhupada. Now there are interesting places in the world. Some of you, those of you in Europe, I don't know how many of you visited Sweden. The northern part of Sweden has a midnight sun. You know something called as midnight sun? There is a 1 month in a year when there is no night only. At 1:30 in the morning would be a sun. for 1 month. Now, I don't know how do you apply Brahma Muhurta formula there. You know? So, and then this is May and June of Sweden, not whole Sweden, but the northern part of Sweden. And then in December of northern Sweden, for a month, almost for a month, generally for 3 weeks straight, there is no sun. So again, how do you apply Brahma Muhurta? Maybe the beginning of the 3 weeks and then at the end of the 3 weeks. So, jokes apart, Mother Swapna, regarding to your question, Srila Prabhupada gave us a simple formula, which is said 2 hours or 2.5 hours prior to sunrise. What that formula means, the rising of sun actually sets mode of passion into action. So 2.5 hours prior to that is considered to be a mode of goodness period. Now, when you say 7:15 or 7:30 is your sunrise, what time is the sunset? That's a question to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Approximately. Anything 7, 8. What time does the sun set? Roughly.
In the winter, I think it's 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah, 4 to 5:30.
In the evening, right? So no problem. Na? You can follow Indian Standard Time only. Na? So you sleep at 9 o'clock, you wake up at 3 o'clock. Hell with wet time, sun rises in London. You follow simple Prabhupada's formula then. See, I was in Columbus. You know, there in summer season, the sun would set after 9 o'clock. रात को 9 बजे के बाद. You know, for the very first day when I was there, from beginning, I'm not used to wearing watch. I just don't like to be dictated by time. So I had gone to my campus, and now I had to walk back to my host house. And I was like, hey, there is sunrise. So it's still the evening. And by the time when I reached home, you have to say precisely, when I reached the host house, at that point of time, there is somebody unmuted. There is some kuch awaaz aa rahi hai. Please check whoever is unmuted can mute themselves. So by the time when I reached, it was just like the sun has set now. And it was becoming darker. So when I reached there, my host opened the door and, you know, Mataji asked me, Mataji means the lady that time, she said, Prabhu, not of course she isn't Prabhu, she said, Mayank, where were you? We have been waiting for dinner for you for last 2 hours. The last 2 hours? I am coming from Indian Standard Zone, na? So sunset in India would happen 7 o'clock. So I said, come on, what time do you take your dinner? Do you take your dinner 5 o'clock? I guess it should be 7:30. I'm just early. She said it's 10:30 in the night. And I reached there. So I guess it's not such a big challenge. Follow what you have. There could be more scientific reasons to it, but this is what the general understanding. Okay. Many of Prabhupada disciples used to get up 4 hours before sunrise. So you can put in your time accordingly and wake up. See, whatever time, wherever it is, but Mangal Aarti would happen in your London temple at 4:30 only, na? Yes or no? So what it means, you should get up at 4 o'clock, regardless of what time sun rises. Okay? Hare Krishna. Yes, Mother Satya.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanavad Pranams. So you have said that sinful desires, like we have discussed, that sinful desires would lead to all this suffering. So, but as devotees, we follow like 4 eggs and all those other things. But still, how do we identify sinful desires after that 4 eggs, Prabhuji? That's what my question is. Like there may be many things which might not be very favorable to Krishna consciousness because of circumstances or maybe because of our own shortcomings. So how do we identify those desires, like before actually? So when we identify, maybe we can stop from going ahead. So
I guess it's pretty simple. Srila Prabhupada have kind of given our daily schedule or of our life's design in such a way, he has not left any loophole. Eat only Krishna Prasad, sleep early, wake up early, no movies, no TV, no frivolous sports, wasting of time, no drinking of coffee, no eating of coffee, drinking of, what was I saying? No eating of chocolate, eating of coffee, tea, etc. If you see, largely everything is defined. So when we are doing anything which is outside of it, or where we are doubtful, just like during Prabhupada time, of course, they were all new. So many interesting things will happen. Once Srila Prabhupada went to one temple, a ISKCON temple, and there Prabhupada saw the deities have been offered soda. Pepsi was offered. And that Pepsi was brought to Prabhupada as a Mahaprasadam. Srila Prabhupada said, "Arey, what is this black drink?" And the disciple said, "Prabhupada, this is soft drink, Pepsi." Prabhupada said, "Who told you to offer?" Krishna says, "Pataram pushpam palam toyam." Can't you offer water? Why you have to offer Pepsi? So, when you have a doubt, clarify. So that is the only situation where we become a victim. Okay? Otherwise, I just don't know. I guess everything is so much defined within ISKCON. Every single thing, what kind of action to be done, Bhagavad Gita philosophy, when we'll read, you'll get to know of it. Every single thing is defined. Only thing which is not defined, or what we don't know, is only when we are unsure of it. Many things of the West have become in a gray area, like chocolate. Many take it also. I'm talking to the devotees. But Prabhupada said no. Now, of course, it could be a different way of making a chocolate. I don't know of it, than the process that was there before. So I don't want to speak anything on that particular subject. It's not my knowledge about how chocolate is made today. But I'm just making a point. All right? When you are in doubt, just Arjuna approach Krishna, call up your mentor and find out what's going on, right or wrong. Mother Aarti.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, and Pranam. Prabhu, you have mentioned devotional service is more transcendental and stronger than Krishna himself. Why is it greater than Krishna? Why devotional service is greater than Krishna?
Oh, I didn't mention. I'm going to speak about it. Did I? I have not yet spoken about it. So I'm a little surprised. How did you figure it out that I'm going to make this statement very soon? Anyone else? Did anyone else heard this statement from me yet? I didn't say that so far. I'm supposed to say that. My question is, did anyone heard the statement that I made today, devotional service is greater than Krishna so far? Yes or no?
Yes.
Oh, I did say that.
It was in the text when we were reading.
Oh, in the text it is said, the Prabhupada said. No, I didn't say. So say Prabhupada said. Okay. Because the way the flow of discussion is going on, I'm going to make a statement. So if it was in a text, that's okay. So Mother Aarti, I'll come back to your question, okay? I'm going to explain that subject in a short while. All right. So, and those of you who said no, you probably were not attentive when the statement was read. Okay, it looks like there was a translation. Okay, let's move forward with our discussion. Okay, I hope slide is visible. Let's continue. So we have already talked about the evolution of sin. So how do we purify, or how do we get freed of the suffering? Please mark it as a homework. I will not have the time to read the purport now. But Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd Canto, 33rd chapter, verse number 6. Mother Devahuti speaking to her son Kapila Muni or Kapila Dev. Yannamadeha shravananukirtanat yat pravana yasmaranat apikavichit shvadopi satya savanaya kalpate kutha punaste bhagavanudarshanat. Any one of you would like to read it, please? Just go ahead, unmute yourself and start reading.
Today, nothing of the spiritual advancement of persons who see the Supreme Person face to face. Even a person born in a family of dog eaters immediately becomes eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices if he once utters the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or chants about him. hears about his past, right, offers him obeisances, or even remembers him. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:33.
If he just utters the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or get to hear about Krishna, or get to offer respect to Krishna, a person born Shvado Sadhya in a family of a dog eater, he becomes eligible to perform all Vedic sacrifice. In order to, some of you may not relate or understand, to perform any Vedic sacrifice, you need to be a high-class Brahmana. So whoever you are, you become the highest, high-class Brahmana just because you've heard, you have chanted, you have taken offer obeisances to the Lord. Such is the power of engaging. This is also a part of Bhakti, engaging in a service. And then Mother Devotee says, very beautiful verses. Aho batashva pachato gariyan yajjiva gare vartate nam tupyam te tapaste juhu shashnurarya brahman churnam grananti. Please somebody read out.
Hare Krishna. Oh, how glorious are they whose tongues are chanting your holy name, even if born in the family of dog eater. Such persons are worshipable. Persons who chant the holy name of your Lordship must have executed all kind of austerities and fire sacrifices and achieved all the good manners of the Aryans. To be chanting the holy name of your Lordship, they must have bathed at holy places of pilgrimage, studied the Vedas, and fulfilled everything required from Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd Canto 33.
So congratulations, Mother Devotee is glorifying all of you. How glorious are they whose tongues are chanting, and she says, all of you who are chanting the holy names of the Lord must have executed all kinds of austerities, performed all kinds of fire sacrifices, achieved all the good manners of Aryans. And to be chanting the holy name of Lord means they must have bathed at all holy places, studied all the Vedas, except for what we are studying right now. All right? Because this is written by Rupa Goswami, so this came a little later on. This verse was spoken long before, okay? Studied all the Vedas and fulfilled everything required. Such is the glory of chanting the holy names of the Lord. So in other words, those who chant the holy names of the Lord, first of all, to take to the chanting itself, which means a person is highly qualified, and those who are able to chant, it sets them free from all kinds of sinful reactions. A beautiful purport you can read out. Prabhupada writes in NOD itself, one is engaged in Krishna consciousness and devotional service has without doubt, become freed from all contaminations of sinful activities. Devotional service, therefore, has the power to actually nullify all kinds of reactions to sinful deeds. We are discussing this and making this point again and again, that there is nothing else that we need to take shelter of. Actually, we need not go out of anything what Prabhupada has given to us. If it is not working for you, it's not the problem with the process given to us, problem with our application. We need to go back to the basics, work under the guidance of another senior devotee who's walking on this path, seems to be progressive. Take a guidance from him or her and then move forward. But this is the process. So this is again a chart of it. Avidya leads to sinful reaction, Beejam, not a sinful reaction actually, that's a sinful desire. And that leads to sinful act, and aprarabdha, and then sinful inclination, Kutam. And Beejam is actually sinful desire, not sinful reaction, that's a mistake there. And aprarabdha leads to prarabdha, manifest. This is called as cycle of sin. Papam. Please somebody read out.
The voices in their different stages of development are analyzed herein.
Falonmukham. Prarabdham.
Falonmukham vice is that which we may be undergoing at the present stage of life. Beejam vice is in the seedling process by our desires of different types. Kutam is prior to the stage of Beejam, that is in the germinating stage.
So these are some explanation. We'll move forward. Aparadha we have already discussed. So the conclusion on this discussion on Kleshagni, gaining freedom from suffering, quoting the 6th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, very important verse. Taistani ghani puyante tapadanavratadivi na dharmajam tadhradyam tad apishangri sevaya. Please somebody read out. Translation. 6th canto, 2nd chapter, verse number 17.
Although one may neutralize the reactions of sinful life through austerity, charity, vows, and other such methods, these pious activities cannot uproot the material desires in one's heart. However, if one serves the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, he is immediately freed from all such contamination.
So this is the very first quotation that we gave at the beginning of the discussion, and we conclude with that. Now comes the last stage, suffering. Avidya, Beejam, Papam, and suffering. Gain freedom from suffering. Somebody please read out. This is from Prabhupada's NOD. Prabhupada writing it.
Material contamination is very subtle. Its beginning, it's
fruition,
and results, and how one suffers such results in the form of distress are part of a great chain. When one catches some disease, it is often very difficult to ascertain the cause of the disease. The practical injection to stop all the fructifications of the seeds of our sinful activities is simply engagement in Krishna consciousness.
But every story has a twist. Similarly, the journey of our life also has a twist. But we read in Nectar devotion. What we read? Please somebody read out.
A devotee should not expect immediate relief from the reactions of his past misdeeds. A devotee who is not perfectly freed from the resultant actions should therefore continue to act in Krishna consciousness seriously, even though there may be so many impediments.
But why does a devotee suffers? Why Kleshagni has not completed for him? If he has taken wholeheartedly, practicing the rules and regulations, not for days, weeks, months, but for years, yet seems to be a karmic reaction. Devotees get sick, they get different diseases, sometimes they get into accident. It is all said to be karmic reaction. Is he not standing in a proper standing? Is he getting some reaction of some recently committed sin? Or Krishna is not fulfilling his commitment? And when I say Krishna is not fulfilling commitment, why I say so? Because Krishna concludes Bhagavad Gita like that. Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayashyami ma sujaha. Krishna says, right? All of us have given all kind of religious faith practices, have taken wholeheartedly shelter. We're chanting 16 rounds, we're falling for regular principles, everything. Then why is Krishna not fulfilling his promise? What's happening? Why we are not being protected? Why we are not being set freed of all of our sinful reaction? So first of all, what does this shloka means? Somebody please read out.
What does it mean? Srila Prabhupada has extended Krishna's statement in the Gita to the spiritual master, who is Krishna's representative, that if you surrender to the spiritual master at the time of initiation, you become free from all sinful reactions.
Continue.
So, which is it? Are we actually free from all sinful reactions? 1. Immediately when we surrender, or do we gradually become free?
I know there is not much time for discussion, although it's a topic of worth discussion. So just want to take a quick feedback from all of you. What do you think about it? Do we get freed immediately or does it happen gradually? At the time of initiation, the Guru accepts all the karma. That's what you might have heard, right?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandapram.
Yes, Mother.
Prabhuji, is it because of the offenses that happen unconsciously when you're dealing with devotees and also with the outside world?
No, not only unconsciously. Don't we consciously commit offense also, right?
Yes, sir.
If you're around devotees.
Is it because of that? Is it because of the offenses?
Well, see, you don't get sinful reactions because of Vaishnava Prad. Vaishnava Prad is the end of story for you. Sinful reaction comes because of sinful action. Vaishnava Prad is not of the category of sinful action. It is more severe than the sinful action. Okay, Jai Prabhu? There are some comments coming. What is
So I
it?
think because so that fire of Krishna consciousness that you were explaining here. So because we don't have that fire from the beginning, it gradually develops. So I think the taking away of the sinful reaction also kind of happens in reciprocation to that.
Okay.
So as we gradually develop the fire.
Correct. So the point is, as Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Pratyajamamekam Shranu Vraja. Generally, our understanding is in a binary form, 1 and 0. Either I surrender or I don't surrender. Generally, it doesn't happen like that. Surrender is a process. Being a process, thus it becomes gradual. You getting a point? Just like Mother Rati Manji was making in the beginning, and Jai Prabhu is saying now, it's a gradual process. It's a gradual, why? Because it itself is a process. As you get purified, to that degree, you surrender. As you surrender, to that degree, you get purified. The more you're purified, the more you surrender. Again, you see, now earlier we had discovered a self-defeating approach. The more you fulfill your desire, the more sinful action, that sinful action will lead you more sinful desire. Similarly, the more we try to follow. Surrender means what? Surrender means to follow. And here it is, we said, surrender not to Krishna, surrender to Guru. Is very interesting. There is a concept that Srimad Bhagavatam talks about all through Bhakti, Bhagavan. If I ask you right now, who is the greatest among three? Bhakti, Bhagavan. Who is the greatest among three? Mother Sneha says Bhakti. Quick, keep giving your answers. Bhakti. Bhakti is greater. What is greater? Okay, all of you saying Bhakti because you read the quotation before? अरे भैया भगवान ने ऐसा क्या बुरा करा आपके संग? Nobody is giving support. Nobody is giving vote to Bhagwan, huh? Bhagwan ji is outvoted here. Nobody is choosing him. All through Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I am the greatest. And you are saying he's not the greatest. Okay. So actually, it's the devotee who is the greatest. Who was sitting on the chariot and who was sitting on the position of a charioteer on Arjuna's chariot? Arjuna was sitting on the chariot and Krishna was sitting on the charioteer's location, right? Yes or no? So it is Bhakt. Krishna, the war has ended. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He wanted to go. Yudhishthira said no. He went back to the palace inside. Krishna had already decided, I'm leaving now. Mother Kunti offered her prayers. And then Yudhishthira Maharaj came out and said, no. Lord Shri Krishna hung his head down and went inside the palace. Of course, not like that. But he went inside. Second time, when he wanted to approach Yudhishthira, Krishna did not even approach Yudhishthira directly. You know to whom did he ask? You go and ask permission for my departure from Hastinapur to Dwarka. Arey, what kind of Supreme Personality you are? You need a permission from a person to whom you made a king. Who made Yudhishthira king? Krishna only. So whom did Krishna ask? Arjuna. You will not know this. This is part of Mahabharata. This is all described in Mahabharata. So Yudhishthira, while returning back from Khandava Prasth, they had gone to Khandava Prasth together. Hare Krishna. Somebody needs to be muted, please. When Krishna and Arjuna were returning back from Khandava Prasth, that time Krishna asked, Arjuna, I would like to go back. It's high time. It's been a long time I've been here. You go and convince Yudhishthira Maharaj. And then Arjuna went and presented the case. So many examples you will see, Yashoda bound Krishna. The gopis would tell, you want our butter? Show me the dance. And Krishna will dance, and then gopis will say, okay, now you can take some butter. So it is actually bhakta. Therefore, in Adi Puran, when a discussion happens, there is a discussion between Krishna and Arjuna, and Krishna telling Arjuna, Arjuna, those who say they are my devotees are not my devotees, but those who are devotees of my devotees actually are my devotees. So that is a point which is described in the slide that we just talked about. Surrender means surrender to devotee. Where is the presentation? 1 second, please. So how to reconcile? Srila Prabhupada has given some other hints which could help us resolve this question. He has said that when the devotee surrenders to Krishna, Krishna will take charge of the devotee's sinful reactions and use the devotee's sinful reactions for the best benefit of the devotee. His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj makes his comment. That's what Prabhupada said. Now, why Krishna will use your sinful reaction in your best interest? That is being discussed and explained. Somebody please read out. Why we still get some sinful reactions? Please go ahead.
Because in his mind, devotee may maintain the remnants of his previous sinful mentality. The Lord removes the last vestiges of the enjoying spirit by giving the devotee punishments that may sometimes resemble sinful reactions.
In 9th canto, there is a purport where it is mentioned, in whose episode it is? Okay, don't remember exactly, but this is in the later on chapters of the 9th canto, where there is a discussion on a similar subject matter. I'll get a reference in the same exact quotation and will present in the next class, where the verse says that in the material, why this material world is made as a place of suffering. Okay, let me ask this question to all of you. Why Krishna made this place as a place of suffering? What was the need of it? Why? And the answer is, okay, go ahead.
Prabhuji, it's because then we'll hanker for association with the Lord once we go through suffering. There's a hankering.
Okay. Vipadashantu taha shashvat tatra Jagat Guru, right? That's a verse. Mother Kunti says, okay. So Prabhupada explains in the purport why it is said like that. There is a suffering. The suffering is essential in the material world. Prabhupada said, when animals are required to be trained, or when you need to train the animal, you need to beat the animal, isn't it? Now, not necessarily physically beat, but you starve the animal. The suffering has to undergo, because the animal is so dull-headed. If you tell him do this, he will not do it. But when you train him by certain means of punishment and suffering, then that animal understands. Making sense? Are you getting the point? Similarly, the dull-headed human beings, the living entities of this world, those who come into this world, they become so dull-headed because of the contact of modes of material nature. Unless they get a punch, they don't look back. That there is some reality outside of this creation. They never look towards the Supreme Lord. Are you getting the point? So that is the same point we're discussing here. Suffering is essential and suffering is needed. Imagine, even if in our life, you have a perfect job, perfect family life, your morning program is going on very nicely, you wake up everything, you have reading circle and everything going on wonderful. How many of you think this perfect life is imperfect in the material world. If I get into this perfect life where all my material needs are taken care of, my family is healthy and happy, I have no suffering around, how many of you think you can be a progressive devotee, or you think I may get distracted? I may become a little lackadaisical in my bhakti life. Yes, no, no, yes. What do you think? If there is no material discomfort, no material discomfort, no material anxiety at all, how many think I might become too comfortable in the material world? Please raise your hands. Yes or no? So that pinch is needed to keep us reminding again and again, Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. That's the point. Okay, let's move forward. Please read ahead.
Although a devotee has surrendered to the Lord's devotional service, until he is completely perfect in Krishna consciousness, he may maintain a slight inclination to enjoy the false happiness of this world.
Okay, Srila Prabhupada also had certain health issues. He had cardiac arrest, and then later on in his life, he was severely sick. Is it Krishna is trying to make Srila Prabhupada become more sincere in his devotional life? What is your understanding? Is there some pending karma, or where Krishna is using some of that just to purify? Jai Prabhu, go ahead. But that's what we're discussing, right?
So for pure devotees, probably Pandavas can also be taken as an example. Sometimes God makes them suffer to give lessons. That even after heart attacks, because Prabhupada is great, that even after so many heart attacks, he still traveled to the foreign country and did so much. So that is in a way to glorify him.
Perfect. Very nice answer. To glorify them. Correct. Now, in terms of a guru, somebody is a guru. What it means for a guru? Prabhupada often said, is because my disciples are not chanting and following four regulatory principles. I am getting the reaction of their sinful act. And that's a part of a disciple and guru agreement. That's the whole process. So guru is not suffering because of there is some pending karma for him. That is because the disciples are not following properly. That's the point there. So, okay. So what is the verdict of Brahma in regards of suffering of a devotee? Tatte nukampa susamekshamano bhunjana evatma kritam vipakam Hidvag vapubhe vidadhan namaste jivetayo muktipade sadaya bhak. Brahmaji says, my dear Lord, one who earnestly awaits you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently tolerant, suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances nonetheless with his heart, words and body, prana artha diya vacha, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. Even while undergoing suffering, he does not doubt you, he does not ask, my dear Lord, you said you'll protect me, why are you not protecting me? Rather, the devotee thinks, oh, I'm just getting the, some remnants of my sinful reaction. The mountains have been already removed by the Lord. So very beautiful purport by Srila Prabhupada. Please somebody read out.
Lord Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that a devotee who fully surrenders unto him is no longer liable to suffer the reactions of his previous karma. However, because in his mind a devotee may still maintain the remnants of his previous sinful mentality, the Lord removes the last vestiges of the enjoying spirit by giving his devotee punishments that may sometimes resemble sinful reactions. The purpose of the entire creation of God is to rectify the living entity's tendency to enjoy without the Lord. And therefore, the particular punishment given for a sinful activity is specifically designed to curtail the mentality that produced the activity. Although a devotee has surrendered to the Lord's devotional service until he is completely perfect in Krishna consciousness, he may maintain a slight inclination to enjoy the false happiness of this world. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.8.
Please continue.
The Lord therefore creates a particular situation to eradicate this remaining enjoying spirit. This unhappiness suffered by a sincere devotee is not technically a karmic reaction. It is rather the Lord's special mercy for inducing his devotee to completely let go of the material world and return back to Godhead.
With my limited understanding and experience, at least I have definitely come to a conclusion, unless we go through this experience, our strong, deep-rooted attachments will never break to this world. We don't realize also at times, unless we go through these experiences, then we realize how attached we were actually. It could be our family bondages, relationships, attached to money. When you lose everything, then you understand how attached I was to it, to family relationships, etc. To maybe to intelligence. There's one Prabhupada disciple. I asked, Mother, why don't you give class? You're such a sincere practitioner from all the initial years that I've known of you, heard of you, about you, and all that. Very beautiful answer she gave. And she said, I am so grateful that Krishna did not give me much intelligence. She said, I'm not an intellect. I'm not an intellectual lady to give class. But I said, Mother, you have years of devotional service you have performed. So she said, no, I don't have that intellect. And I'm very grateful to Krishna for not giving me that ability. That's a way of looking at it. So I said, what do you mean? And she said, because that keeps me humble. If I would have to become a great speaker, then I would be glorified. And then there is always all the risk of me committing aparadh. Now, she would maximum time, her major service was kitchen service. So she would single-handedly cook. She was one of my initial mentors back in America. Till the time I was in America. We're still in touch, but of course that was the time when I learned the most. So I said, you have years of devotion service. She was the main person of cooking all alone, 70-year-old lady. Still she will cook the whole Sunday feast by herself for 150 people, single-handedly. And everything is perfect about her. So I said, why don't you speak? And her answer was, no, I'm grateful for Krishna not making me intellectual. Now her service was in the background. Nobody knew who cooked. Now all of you attend program, you know that when a new guest comes, he knows who led the kirtan. He knows who gave the class, isn't it? But does he know who cooked? Nobody knows. So I'm just making an example in the context of our discussion here. That is what called as maturity, to see a weakness as a strength. What we see in weakness in the material realm is actually at times a strength in spiritual life. And that was her glory, like that. So, Lord's version is, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. What is my mercy? Special mercy? Yasyaham anugraha nami harshe tadhanam shanehe tato adhanam tayajanti yasya swajana dukkha dukkhetam. Lord said, if I specially favor someone, I gradually deprive him of his wealth. And the relatives and friends of such poverty-stricken men abandon him. In this way, he suffers one distress after another. Hari Bol. We reveal the secret only in Bhakti Shastri, not before. Imagine you reveal the secret in your first class. Like, I came here with a proposal and understanding my distress will be taken away. And now you're telling me, when I am merciful, I give you distress. I fill your life in distress. Just this statement can be distressful. The reality, imagine how distressful it would be. So, Hare Krishna. I hope, but I'm glad to see all of you have a smiling face. So, good, good, good. You all are smiling, and with the open arm, you will welcome. So, how do we deal with a situation like this? Let's say reversals. When we are faced with reversals, what should be our response internally and externally? Internally, we should be cheerful. Generally, we become morose and depressed, but we should be cheerful, knowing the fact that it is arranged by Krishna for my purification. Krishna says it is my mercy, right? So, cheerful, knowing the fact that this is a large reciprocation, is to help me become a better devotee. How should I deal externally? Tolerate the reversals. How would a common man do or will behave about it? He'll become uncontrollably angry, right? Why me? Why do bad things happen to me or to good people and whatnot? Why I always have to suffer? But for a devotee, he will tolerate. Rather than becoming depressed and morose, he'll be cheerful and would continue on with his duty. Whereas a new bhakta or a neophyte devotee or an ordinary man, for that reason, would give up on his duty. He'll say, no, this has only brought me distress and suffering. He would just give up and cry. And this is how a devotee deals with it. So to conclude with today's discussion, we spoke on the subject of the first characteristic of pure devotional service, that is kleshagani. Oh, all of you saw the slide deck, right? The verse was visible online? No, I just brought it now. Okay, anyways, we are on the conclusion now. So we discussed about kleshagni. Kleshagni, klesha. Why do people suffer? People suffer because of avidya. Avidya leads to material desires. Material desire leads to sinful action. And sinful action is the cause of suffering. Sinful action results into two kind of reactions. One is prarabdha, other is aprarabdha. Prarabdha is the ongoing suffering. Aprarabdha, which will happen in the future. Aprarabdha is further subdivided into two. One is physical and emotional suffering, prarabdha, and unmanifest. You can say other is indirect suffering. What indirect suffering means? Now you want to do it more. You know, the desire for performing sinful action becomes more. So how do we become free from this suffering, which is caused because of all these things? And Srila Rupa Goswami, quoting different aspect of scriptures, he says only bhakti is a means to destroy everything. Not only papa, not only the suffering that comes, but also the beejam and avidya can be done with that. And after that, we brought our discussion, then why do devotees have to face suffering when Krishna have promised? And we learned from the discussion that we had, the devotees face some inconveniences, some challenges, some suffering, so-called suffering. It's actually a mercy of the Lord. As you see in this verse, Krishna says, it's a mercy of the Lord just to, first of all, keep you always alert in your devotional life. And second, to increase your focus and absorption more towards Krishna and to slacken our attachment to this world. To conclude with, Prabhupada says, he reminded with those royal brothers being attracted by their, he remained with those royal brothers being attracted by their devotion, by their friendship and by their love. That is a proof of how great this process of devotional service is. It can attract even the greatest Supreme Personality. God is great, but devotional service is greater than God because it attracts Him. People who are not in devotional service can never understand what great value there is in rendering devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. With that, we conclude for today. Next time when we meet, we'll discuss the 5 other qualities. There's not much technical discussion in that. So next week when we meet, we'll conclude the chapter 1. We'll talk about Shubhada, Moksha, Laguta, Krit, Sudalabha, Sandarananda, Visheshatma, Shri Krishni, Akarshani, Chasa, etc. This remaining 5 characters we'll discuss next week. With that, we come to the conclusion for today's discussion. Thank you all for your kind attention. If there are any questions or comments, we can take it, or else we pause for today. Hare Krishna. Any clarifications? Yes, Mata Rati Manjari.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Namaskaram. Prabhuji had mentioned about three kinds of devotees, the Nitya Siddhas, and then the second one and the third was Sadhaka. What are the reactions? Nitya Siddhas don't have any reaction, but what happens to the second level?
Just give me a quick second. Pull out that slide for all of you, which Mother is discussing. Nitya Siddha, who are always on Transcendental platform. Then there is Sadhana Siddha, who by the practice of Sadhana Bhakti, like those who have taken the path of Sadhana Bhakti, like all of us, when they excel, become perfected, they are called as Sadhana Siddha. And then there are neophyte devotees, those who have taken to Bhakti, and now they are gradually progressing. They are called as Sadhaka, which is, the word Sadhaka is coming from Sadhana Bhakti, which will be described in 2nd chapter onwards. So, Mother, what's your question here now?
So, Prabhuji, these sadhana siddhas, do they also go through the reactions? Like the papam, kutam, beejam?
See, this is for everyone, and sadhaka only becomes sadhana siddha. So, sadhana siddha means all were sadhakas at one stage in their life. Nitya siddha and sadhana siddha, what is the difference? Nitya siddha means they never come to this material world, they never fall down. Sadhana siddha refers to those who have come to this world and through the process of bhakti, bhakti yoga, by the process of sadhana, they become perfected. They call it sadhana siddha, like that. So they all have gone through all this process, what we are discussing now. All right?
Prabhuji, any examples for sadhana siddhas now?
Example first. His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, all the leaders.
All the Guru Maharajas.
You know, not necessarily all the Guru Maharajas, could be mothers also. You know, I'm just naming those who we know. There could be any great devotees, many of them. I just named some. So first of all, a sannyasi or a guru is not the only pure devotee. I am not saying they are not. A small child could be a pure devotee. A mother could be a pure devotee, you know. Jai Prabhu, go ahead.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, in the first half of the class, you had mentioned that for following Srinada's principle, we have to develop a dependence on devotees. So, how do we practically do that? I mean, how do we depend on devotees? Like, what are practical things that we can do to develop that dependence on devotees?
Guhyam akhyati prachati. The text 4 of Upadeshamrit. What is the first line? Dadati pratigranati guhyam akyati prachati bunkate bojatei chaiva sadvidi priti lakshanam. So, dependence, Jay, you want to mute yourself, yeah. Dependence, developing a dependence on the devotees means working under the guidance. It is a state of mind. When we come to Krishna consciousness, we all come with a state of mind where we think, I know the best. Where we think, I have to make a decision. And I know what is right, what is wrong. And when you begin to get educated, then you understand whatever you know was wrong. And whatever you know today is also all wrong because of your contaminated mind. And then you said, okay, now work under guidance. Decision is yours. But work under guidance. Discuss with a senior and then make decisions of your life. That is what it means working under dependence. Example of independent is, Prabhupada in one of the purpose, right? What is the difference between dictator and a monarch? Dictator is an untrained leader and monarch is a trained leader. What is a trained leader? A trained leader is one who never makes a decision independently. He'll always have a body, a council of body. those who are all comprising of top-notch brahmanas. He would always discuss with them. What is the untrained leader? One who does what he wants to do. He would never discuss. An example is Ravana. While he went to kidnap Sita, he didn't hear to anyone. So many people, he didn't wanted advice, but still people came and gave him advice. Yet he didn't listen to anyone. And what was the consequence result of that untrained leader? And the whole praja was destroyed. All right? So working on dependence is to have a culture of consultation where we work under guidance. Yes, Jayapur.
So I have a follow-up question, but where do we draw the line? What should we consult, what should we not consult? Because there are, in day-to-day basis, we make so many decisions, and for everything we cannot consult devotees.
Therefore, Guru Sadhu Shastra. Dependency means dependency on Guru Sadhu Shastra. So for day-to-day, refer Shastras. For very specific thing, then you can go and consult Guru and Sadhu. Should I eat vegetarian, non-vegetarian? Bhagavad Gita makes it very clear what you should do, right? So for day-to-day things, many of things are already guided by scriptures. If scriptures are not able to give you a concrete answer, you're not able to find a concrete answer, then approach Sadhu. Sadhu means sadhu. And if not, then approach Guru if the facility is there. Okay? Therefore, it is never said Guru only. It is said Guru Sadhu Shastra. So I guess there is no more questions for today. If I'm correct, there's no more hand up. Thank you all for joining in. And my request to all of you is a subject matter which would require some time for your understanding. So do kindly read. When we meet next week, prior to that, please complete the reading of what we have discussed, and if possible, read further also. Then you will have that level of, to that much degree understanding. Otherwise, we might find it a little complicated and confusing when you open a book by yourself a night before the exam. And you plan to do a night out, it won't be a successful night out. And don't call it, my failing in exam was the mercy of the Lord. Don't use that excuse that time. It was your inattention and not studying timely. Okay? Mother Rati Manju will conclude with you. Yes.
Prabhuji, when do we reach the stage of pure devotional service? There's no time, but how do we realize that we are on the right path?
How do you realize you're on the right path? Is a different question than what you asked first.
Pure devotional service.
Say that again.
How do we know that the pure devotional service, the platform we have reached?
When Srila Prabhupada was asked, Srila Prabhupada was asked such a question, Prabhupada said, you'll realize it. And Prabhupada gave an example, just like a hungry person when he's fed, he realizes that he's satisfied now. He doesn't need a confirmation from a cook, maybe from the wife or the husband. Are kitna khaoge bhai? You're overeaten. So nobody has to come and give him a confirmation that you're done. He realizes from within. That's what Prabhupada would give an example as an answer to such question. So I don't have an experience, so I cannot share that experience. I'm too far away from the journey. But please pray for each other. Prayers or devotees are needed. So when we approach there, then we'll begin to get some experience of it. All right, Mother?